they're probably not paying you for this conference. That's free. It saves Conscious Capitalism a bunch of money so that they can do their work. That kind of stuff. There's a million things like that that you can do. Instead of donating to the Alzheimer's group one year, we lent them our public relations person, who's like the greatest public relations person ever. We lent them to her for a month because they were trying to develop an event that they could raise money for Alzheimer's support. So we paid her salary. She worked for them for a month. They raised like $100,000. They would never have been able to do it. It cost us maybe $6,000. So instead of a $6,000 donation, we lent them our public relations person who produced a $100,000 benefit. So millions of things like that. When you're thinking about how do you use company assets in a way that will accrue to the community without detriment to the financial situation that we have to maintain or our customer proposition, there are just a million ways. And I've talked to some of your people and they have figured out many, many ways of doing the same thing. And I know a lot of Whole Foods people do the same thing. So that's the kind of creative process when you place the community as a central stakeholder in the operating plan. You start thinking about how do you maximize stakeholder return in a way that is compatible with the larger business interests. And that's I got like a million more. But I'm not gonna share.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, I'm just so happy to have you three in this room. This is just inspiring. So, conscious culture. I mean, obviously, you guys, you develop this culture in your organizations. This conscious culture where people just really accept and buy into what you're doing and the programs and. But I'm wondering, and you mentioned something, Naomi, with regard to hiring people. That's actually an attraction. That because of these programs, you're actually able to attract people who are like-minded, have a good heart, love that you give back, want to be a part of that. And that's just another maybe unintended consequence of having the model that you have. But is there anything else that you can tell me from within your own organizations, how it affects your staff and how you operate within that? And we'll just continue, Naomi, Matt, and Mike.
Yeah, so, I mean, folks know about with the philanthropy that Salesforce does, particularly if you're here in the Bay Area. But we really are trying to make sure that it's not just the talk, right, that we're walking this talk. And so first day at Salesforce in your new hire orientation, we take 2 hours of that new hire orientation and we take you on a volunteering event. So we go to St. Anthony's and we sort clothes. We do we go to Glide and serve food. So you hear, and when I went through my new hire orientation, I was sitting there, and every person who got up and talked was like, and the foundation, and it's so great and it's so important. And you heard them say it over and over, and then they're like, okay, now we're going to go do a foundation event. And everyone got up and we all went and did volunteering. And so it was really that, okay, day one, this is integrated to what we do. But we do it in a lot of other ways, which I think are really important. We provide those benefits, but we also make sure that from the very top that this is part of the company culture. So every year when Mark sets his company goals and his goals, there's something about giving back in that. And that trickles down through his leadership team. So his leadership team is engaged around, giving back around our core initiatives, making sure their team is. We actually use Salesforce technology to track the volunteering, and we go and show dashboards that show that, the executive with this business unit against this executive at that business unit, oh, look who's trailing and look who needs to, so we use that competition within the business units to drive that. And we really, we make sure that it sort of comes in from the top, so if folks feel like, okay, I can go and do that volunteering event, and I'm not going to get dinged because I'm away from my desk, but this is really something that's supported. So for every volunteer that does their 48 hours of service, they get a $1,000 champion grant to donate to the nonprofit of their choice. We celebrate those who are those champions. We just did a trip last year. We took our longest standing volunteers who had been doing things for years, who had also happened to be early Salesforce employees as well. We took them to Cambodia with Room to Read to build a school, and it was really transformational. And then the other thing that was important to know is that the folks who have been doing that volunteering were also the folks who were some of our top leaders in our company. So there's an interesting sort of correlation between leadership and those who are willing to be giving back and make that a priority. There's a lot of other things that we do, like we provide team grants. We want our teams to go out and volunteer, but we don't want any of those nonprofits to incur costs. So if they're to do that volunteering, so if you're going to do a habitat build and they need to be buying the hammers and the nails and the pouches, we'll offset that cost for the nonprofit, so they're not going to be running at a deficit in order to support our teams. We just did surpass we've done 1.1 million hours of service with our employees in our 16 years in existence. And it's something that we celebrate, and we go big. When we had our 15th anniversary celebration, we did a lot of things, but we took over the Justin Herman Plaza, and there was, we were packing food for Stop Hunger Now. So our employees come to expect that if we're doing an event, there's something about giving back. It is not just about, it's not just about our technology, it's not just about, sort of our business, but there's giving back in everything we do, and that's why at Dreamforce, we go huge with that, so we do the $10 million raised for the children's hospitals, but we also did 1 million books. 2 years ago, we did 3 million meals that were raised. So it's I think once you sort of get that energy going, and you have it both sort of integrated into your culture, you're given those opportunities, and you have that buy-in from the top, who are also supporting it, it just takes on a life of its own, which is what's so amazing. And now the employees really, you see in our sort of internal social media feed people saying like, oh, I'm going here and I want to do a volunteering event, and how do I make sure I get these nonprofits involved in using our product? And it just sort of becomes its own snowballing effect.
Yeah, thank you. And I love that in all of your cases, this philanthropic model is baked into your organization, your culture. You didn't back into it because, it's a cool thing to do. All companies are starting to get into this, and maybe we should do it too. So, I think that's really important that you're coming from that very place. In fact, I was just looking at the, I meant to start off our evening with a definition of philanthropy itself. It's etymologically.
To study insects,
Etymologically, the word means, it's a Greek word, means love of humanity, which is just, beautiful, right? And in the sense that, caring, enhancing, nourishing what it is to be human. And so I never really realized that. And so, as we apply it to business, conscious philosophy, it's, basically it's a responsibility to all stakeholders in defining a new corporate worldview. And, hopefully, as Mike said, he was inspired and influenced by Newman's Own. I was inspired by working asset long distance and others, and this is what we need to do actually to show the world that this is going to be the new business as usual. So Matt, anything else you can add? As far as your employees, do you think that it adds to employee happiness, satisfaction? Is it more team, kind of strengthening? Tell me how it affects your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would say, it's interesting. Whole Foods Market probably came to philanthropy as a part of our mission a little later. Whole Foods is 35 years old now, and I think our oldest foundation, Whole Planet, is probably just around 10 years old. And really our mission and our higher purpose has always been about our food and the way that we buy it and what we buy, and supporting organic agriculture and sustainable agriculture, and advancing, supporting the best growers, people who are food producers, and then, providing customers with high quality, healthy food. That's really been the way that we have, that's really been our mission. And as we've grown, and I think we've found ways to enhance our mission or to pursue it in ways that we haven't been able to, and have expanded our philanthropic efforts to really sort of plug some gaps, places where we haven't been able to touch, or where we feel like we can have a bigger impact. But our team members are absolutely driven by the mission of the company, and I do think that retention is a result. I do think that we get talent and creative, passionate people working in this business when we wouldn't otherwise necessarily, because of the mission, because of our culture, of empowerment, where really it's a buzzword, but it's really, in our world, very true. It can be a very frustrating thing to be empowered. You have to find your own way, and be self-driven, all these things we write on job descriptions. But at Whole Foods, it's really true, and that can be frustrating. But it can also be very rewarding, and I do think that we get people who are passionate and who are driven and who are therefore more effective, whether it be somebody working in our stores who's going to be passionate about the product, who wants to learn about the product, and who wants to tell customers about the product and give them a sample and walk them to the thing in the store that they're looking for instead of pointing. All those things matter, and if you really care and you believe in what we're doing, then that shines through. We do a number of things to really get team members engaged and educated about what we're doing, so we can really try to foster that. We do team member volunteer programs where they can go visit some of our foundations, visit some of our suppliers, see where the product comes from, get involved with some of our the foundations in their work. We have very much of a shared fate culture at Whole Foods Market, where there's we call it gain sharing, a bonus program, profit sharing basically, that runs through all levels of the organization. We famously have a salary cap at the highest level. I think it's 16 times, Liz, is that right? 18 times. The highest paid individual in the company won't make more than 18 times the average wage.
The national average is 350 times. It's what a median worker can go up to.
Yeah,
be a CEO.
So our co-CEO, we have co-CEOs, and John Mackey and Walter Robb. So they're running a Fortune 200 company and not making CEO grade pay in salary, and so that means a lot to people. So all of that kind of stuff, the opportunities to train and engage, just means means the world to people. And so I really think, as a mission-driven organization, you get better people, you keep better people.
Nice. And Mike, let's hear from you. Tell me about your staff. I mean, how do they engage? Do they embrace it? How has it changed their lives? What do you? Give me a sense of what the culture is in your company.
Well, obviously, I would rather have a talented person that's committed to the company goals than a untalented person that's committed to the company goals. But I'd rather have a talented person that is not committed to the company goals than a person that's committed to the company goals that's not talented. In other words, it's not quite that easy. I can't tell you how many people have come into our sales organization with thinking, oh, I could sell this product. I can't sell anything else, but I can sell this product because I'm committed to the company goals. They crash and burn very fast. So the commitment doesn't take care of the customer. And the marketplace enforces upon you certain limitations and latitudes within which you have to operate. So if we wanted to pay our drivers $25 an hour because it's the right thing to do, and Office Depot's paying theirs $15, we're not going to be in business too long, because that cost differential is going to be exploited by the marketplace, and we're going to be driven out, because our customers are going to pay for products based on that cost structure. So, they need to get good produce. They need to have good relationships with the people that they sell stuff for. Otherwise, they don't survive. Your software's got to work. Otherwise, you don't survive. The other stuff is really additive, but it's not a substitute for the basic fundamentals of the business. So now, when you work within a culture that has that mission, I think it reinforces those kind of impulses that everyone has to embrace that mission, because everyone wants to do the right thing. I mean, some people don't, but I think we want the most talented people we can get to go up against our competitors who are offering the most talented people they can get to compete against us. That's what we want. And if we can give them that extra thing, or even generate it within the company experience, that's a net addition for us. But it's not, it's not a requirement. And plus, also, we have a commitment to do the best thing for the community. So we will try to create a pathway for people who have barriers to employment that otherwise would be avoided by other companies. So we have ex-offenders working for us. We have people that have, are not coming to us from UC Berkeley or Stanford, but we feel like they have the capability with subsidies and additional training to rise to the level of productivity that we need them to be. So we will try to create a pathway for people like that, because it's in the interest of the community to have an employed population that's not a burden, but rather an asset. So, but these are all kind of discussions that are had in the context of how do you continue to make a profit by offering your customers the best products you can give them, and then try to wiggle in as much as you can additional benefits to the community without the whole thing falling apart. And it occasionally will fall apart. I mean, just because we're doing the right thing doesn't mean we're having a real challenge now, a really interesting one, because we give our profits away. So, our debt to net worth ratio, which all banks look at in terms of financial viability, we don't build up a lot of net worth. But the bigger we get, the more short-term debt we have. So, we don't look very strong to a bank. Well, that's a challenge to a bank, because they don't give a shit what you do, frankly, most of them. They want you to hit their numbers and be in balance with their covenants. Now, that doesn't mean that New Resource Bank or Beneficial Bank or some of the B Corp banks won't look at the mission a different way. But those are kind of things that you have to consider if you're using business as a tool, and try to maintain that sharpness of that tool so they can basically offer your customers that competitive advantage that they need in order for their businesses to prosper. That's really what.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that, what philanthropy looks like in your organization also means hiring people who need a break. And, I do volunteer work at San Quentin every Sunday night, and so, I know these guys, and a lot of these guys are really capable. But I also know when they get released with their $200 in their pocket, because that's all they get when they get out. They're basically on their own again, and they've got to start building their lives. And the other thing about doing prison work is a lot of these guys are functionally people there on 3 strikes laws just because they were involved in drugs a few times, and they're not like criminally insane or anything, but they have great potential. And so. Kudos to you for, reaching out to that community and working with them. That's definitely meaningful. I do have a question. Something happened in my organization recently. I did a press release because we kind of followed the lead of another company in our industry that's based out of Seattle that decided that they would raise the entry-level salary to $70,000. I don't know if you've heard about this organization. And I know the guy, I've known him for years. I went and visited him. He had a little falling out, when you raise the minimum income, because he's doing it over the course of 3 years to $70,000, and if you've got half your staff earning $75,000, they're going to say, hey, foul, I can't believe some entry level is going to get the same amount of money that I'm getting. And so, he's kind of learned around that. But I took the cue from him, and we are in San Francisco, so I did the same thing. Every entry, and there's only 9 people in my company, granted, okay? I'm a small company, I don't have 120 employees. But still, it was something, and we did a press release, and I talked to a PR firm about this, and he said, well, I went on your website, and he said, I noticed how much you give back. Why don't you lead, promote that as the reason to work with Dharma? And I said, no, that's not, no, I don't want to do that. That's not what I'm looking to do. I'm not looking to lure people to buy goods and services from us just because we give back. Great statistic that you said about Newman's Own. 70% of their consumers didn't even know that they had a giving back program. That's beautiful. But do you ever get any? Oh, and I also, after I did the press release, some of our clients would say, well, gee, am I paying too much for your services? Or, how much are you making, Jeff? That type of thing. So, you get some pushback, but do you ever experience that sort of thing in your organizations? Naomi, is that a factor? Do you get any pushback saying, I can't believe how much money you're giving away, you must be making too much money?
So when we looked at the 10 free licenses for nonprofits, we actually tried to understand what would cover the majority of the nonprofit sector. And so about 80% of our customers just have the 10 free licenses. They don't pay any additional products or service for anything else. They will be happy on that side. This is serving most of the sort of mom and pop nonprofits. And they get all of the benefit of the resources that we invest in that technology to support them. We have a really robust community that where the nonprofits share information. We have all kinds of onboarding services for them. And the way that we're able to do this is through the sales of the technology, of the additional products and services, which they're getting an 80% off list. So they're getting a good deal either way, honestly. And so most of the nonprofits that we speak to who, understand the model and understand, that they are paying a little bit, they understand that they're also supporting the rest of the nonprofit sector. That, by the sale of that technology, we're able to invest in our staff to train them better, to better serve the nonprofits. We're able to run our open grant challenge, which we do, which is called the Force for Change, which is any nonprofit or higher ed who's using Salesforce can apply for a grant to develop a product on our platform that will further sort of the mission or further the sector. And we prefer products that don't have a strong enough market yet that people can go out and sell it. So for example, we funded the Grameen Foundation to do an application